The European Union is once again turning its gaze toward one of the world's biggest tech giants. Google, a subsidiary of Alphabet, is under scrutiny, accused of penalizing certain news websites in its search engine results, a claim the company firmly denies. In Brussels today, this story took a decisive turn as the European Commission formally launched a new investigation under the Digital Markets Regulation. At the heart of this investigation is a question of fairness and transparency. For years, Google has maintained that its algorithms aim to provide the highest quality search results while simultaneously defending its policies against spam and other low-quality content. But the EU's concern is specific, whether those very policies are being applied in a way that unfairly disadvantages legitimate news publishers, undermining the diversity and competitiveness of information available to the public. Thomas Regnier, spokesperson for the European Commission, provided a clear explanation of the Commission's position. He stated that the investigation is not a critique of Google's overall mission to deliver high-quality search results, nor is it a challenge to the company's anti-spam measures, which are designed to protect users from misleading or harmful content. The concern arises when these same measures are allegedly applied unjustifiably to news publishers, potentially suppressing independent reporting that is essential for a healthy democratic discourse. The European Union's focus on Google reflects a broader tension in the digital economy. As search engines and social media platforms have grown, they have gained unprecedented power over how information circulates online. Critics argue that this influence can tilt public perception, control traffic to news sites, and even shape what people consider credible journalism. Regulators across the EU are increasingly wary of platforms that hold such sway without accountability. This investigation is framed under the Digital Markets Act, legislation that is central to the EU's strategy for regulating large tech companies. The Act seeks to prevent unfair practices and ensure that major platforms operate in a way that fosters competition and protects smaller players. For Google, the DMA's provisions mean that any sign of preferential treatment or, conversely, unjustified demotion of certain publishers could trigger legal consequences and significant fines. Industry observers note that Google has previously faced similar scrutiny, both in Europe and globally. Antitrust cases, fines, and ongoing regulatory dialogues have marked the past decade for Alphabet, reflecting the complex balance between technological innovation and public interest. This new investigation, however, carries a distinct focus: news content. By targeting search result algorithms that may penalize certain outlets, the EU is raising questions about how information is curated and who gets to decide which voices are amplified. The stakes are high for both sides. For Google, it is a matter of operational autonomy and defending the integrity of its search systems. For news publishers, especially smaller and independent ones, the issue is existential. Search engine traffic can account for a substantial portion of readership and revenue, meaning that even subtle algorithmic shifts can have profound financial and editorial consequences. Regulators are not merely concerned with economic fairness, they are also emphasizing the societal impact. Democracies rely on a diverse and robust press. If major platforms inadvertently or intentionally suppress certain content, the risk extends beyond business disputes. It touches on public access to information, the vibrancy of debate, and the ability of citizens to make informed decisions. In this light, the Commission's investigation takes on a broader significance than a standard antitrust inquiry. Experts in digital policy note that algorithmic transparency is central to resolving these disputes. Google has consistently maintained that its ranking systems are complex, proprietary, and designed to prioritize relevance and quality. Critics argue that this opacity makes it difficult for publishers to understand why their content may be penalized, leaving them at a disadvantage when seeking redress. The EU's investigation may compel Google to offer more clarity or, at the very least, provide mechanisms to challenge perceived injustices in search rankings. While the Commission has made its position clear, Google's response will be closely watched. In past cases, the company has emphasized its commitment to impartiality and its long-standing support for news organizations. However, the line between enforcing anti-spam rules and inadvertently suppressing legitimate journalism is thin, and regulators are determined to examine whether that line has been crossed. The broader context here is the growing scrutiny of tech giants in Europe. Over the past several years, regulators have pursued cases against companies for issues ranging from data privacy and targeted advertising to competition law. Each investigation contributes to a more detailed picture of how these platforms operate and the effects of their decisions on society. By focusing specifically on news content, the EU signals that it sees the free flow of information as a cornerstone of its regulatory mission. From Brussels, analysts point out that the outcome of this investigation could have far-reaching implications should the Commission find evidence of unjustified penalties against publishers. Google may face corrective measures, changes to its algorithms, or even fines. Beyond the immediate consequences, such a finding could set a precedent for how search engines are expected to handle content, shaping the industry for years to come. It is also worth considering the international dimension. Google operates across multiple jurisdictions, and regulatory actions in one region often ripple globally. A ruling in Europe could influence practices elsewhere, from North America to Asia, creating pressure for greater transparency and fairness in search algorithms. Worldwide, publishers, digital rights advocates, and competing tech firms alike will be monitoring developments closely. The story underscores a fundamental tension in the digital era, the balance between private innovation and public accountability. Google's algorithms are proprietary and, you say, designed to optimize user experience, yet they intersect with fundamental societal functions such as informing the public. Regulators argue that where these systems intersect with democratic processes, scrutiny is not just warranted but essential. Thomas Regnier emphasized that the Commission's approach is measured and specific. The goal is not to impede innovation or penalize Alphabet without cause. Instead, the investigation seeks to determine whether certain practices harm publishers and, by extension, the public interest. In his words, the focus is on ensuring that anti-spam policies are not applied in a non-justified way to news publishers. This statement encapsulates the EU's intent, a careful examination of fairness, not a blanket condemnation of technology. For journalists and media outlets, the investigation is a reminder of their dependence on digital intermediaries. Search engines drive visibility, and the algorithms that determine rankings are powerful arbiters of attention. Even perceived biases or errors in these systems can have outsized effects on traffic, revenue, and influence. The EU's action acknowledges this reality and signals a commitment to preserving a level playing field. As the investigation unfolds, several questions remain. How will Google respond? Will there be immediate changes to its ranking systems? And crucially, will this scrutiny prompt wider reforms in how digital platforms interact with news content globally? The answers will shape not only the tech industry, but the broader media landscape, influencing how people access and trust information in the digital age. The European Union's intervention highlights the evolving role of regulators in a connected world, where once governments focused primarily on economic transactions and traditional business practices, they now must grapple with algorithms, data flows, and the intangible ways platforms shape public knowledge. It is a complex challenge requiring legal, technical, and ethical considerations, all of which the Commission will weigh in its investigation. For now, the investigation is in its early stages. The Commission will gather evidence, analyse search practices, and consult with stakeholders across the media and technology sectors. The process is likely to be meticulous, reflecting the gravity of the questions at hand. Observers anticipate a period of scrutiny, dialogue, and potentially significant findings that could alter how Google and other platforms manage news content. This development also serves as a broader lesson in the interplay between technology and society. As platforms grow in influence, so too does the responsibility to ensure their operations do not inadvertently harm the public interest. By targeting potential demotion of publishers, the EU is sending a clear message. Fairness, transparency and accountability are non-negotiable when the digital marketplace intersects with information access. The coming months will reveal the full contours of this investigation. But one thing is clear, the European Commission is intent on holding even the largest tech companies accountable when their practices intersect with public knowledge. Google, in turn, must navigate a complex landscape, defending its policies while responding to legitimate concerns about fairness and transparency. In a digital world where search engines shape much of what people see and know, this investigation is about more than algorithms. It is about the integrity of the information ecosystem itself. The EU's action reflects a commitment to ensuring that technology serves the public rather than undermining it. And it marks a significant moment in the ongoing dialogue between regulators, tech giants, and the media that informs society. As Europe watches closely, the global tech community takes note. The investigation into Google is more than a regional matter. It is a touchstone for how societies manage the intersection of innovation, influence, and accountability in an era defined by information. And as Thomas Regnier emphasized, the guiding principle remains clear. Anti-spam policies must never be applied unjustifiably, particularly when the stakes involve independent journalism and the public's right to know.
Indeed. So today the Commission has launched a new DMA investigation into how Google Search is demoting publishers' content. Let me explain briefly. Are we against Alphabet's intention to have high-quality search results? No. Are we against Alphabet's spam policy? No. But are we against Alphabet applying that spam policy in a non-justified way to news publishers? Yes. Because